Hello, Michael Pascoe. It's Thursday, March 28th, the beginning of a long weekend and the end of a short week. One when the superannuation changes bogey raised its hydra head, when Leightons and QBE went into damage control, both with variations of governance issues, when Cyprus refused to go away and the sun stopped shining on a solar panels emperor. It was also a week that saw minor rumblings in the wake of the previous week's Labor leadership fiasco, but by and large, that, like government, will pretty soon be all in the past. And that's without mentioning the ICAC and its excruciating vivisection of the party, its factions, the union power over pre-selection, and the mates looking after their little mates and happily stuffing the people. Oh dear. So, in the twilight days of Labor, let's start with the superannuation kerfuffle. Now, just when you thought Labor members couldn't make any greater fools of themselves, up pops Joel Fitzgibbon, the Rudd supporter and Hunter Valley federal member who thinks households with annual income of $250,000 a year are struggling. Now, that rather redefines the Australian social landscape. Joel is saying that households in the top 3% of this fabulous nation are struggling. That's right, barely 3% of Australian households have gross income of $250,000 or more, which means 97% of us must be really, really badly off. Well, I suppose it is possible to lose perspective if you inherited a federal seat with all of its perks from your dad and are used to swanning around China courtesy of a rich businesswoman. It would appear Fitzgibbon has no concept of the real world at all. But I'm also sure there are many households with gross income of $250,000, $500,000, $1 million and more who think they are indeed struggling. After all, it is a basic tenet of economics that wants are unlimited. And it's a basic tenet of human nature that no one likes to lose what they've become used to. So, no matter how wealthy you might be, you wouldn't want to lose any of the extremely enticing aspects of our present superannuation system. There is always a danger when a desperate politician starts eyeing off someone else's bag of money, but there's also plenty of room for nonsense from those sitting on the bag. The fiddling so far with super means it's not as attractive as it was for reasonably well-off people to stick extra money into it. But while it's not as attractive, it still remains extremely attractive. After last year's budget, I listened to an accountant have a big whinge about the changes and how it made the system less attractive. I then asked him if those changes meant he would put less money into his super, and the answer was no, because it's still a much better vehicle than anything else going round. But don't expect to hear that from the self-serving types in the super industry. And if you hear someone in their 50s say they'll negatively gear some real estate instead of maximising the after-tax contributions they can put into super, the odds are they are being very poorly advised. And talking of poorly advised, or simply stupid, there have been the boards of Leightons and QBE over the years, who paid high-profile CEOs too much and seemed to be captured by them. That is still coming home to roost, at QBE in the form of the protest vote over Frank O'Halloran's golden parachute, and at Leightons with the ongoing tussle over board independence. But maybe after the ousting of two chairmen now, there is no longer an issue about the majority shareholder calling the shots, perhaps advised by former CEO Wal King. And the best thing said about the Leightons fight this week was in an interview on ABC Television's evening business show with David Mortimer, the independent chairman who tried to rein in King and who subsequently had to resign. Minority shareholders have now been warned. Leightons has a fair bit of gearing. Its immediate majority owner, Hochtief, has more, and Hochtief's majority owner, ACS, has a great deal more. And it looks like ACS will want to control Leightons primarily for its own priorities. Finally, as predicted, this morning's latest population growth figures from the ABS show our population growth is growing, with 1.7% more people living in Australia at the end of September than there were a year earlier. Net overseas migration for the year soared by 32% to 228,000. And that's the figure that Pauline Hanson and her fellow travellers on both sides of our grubby politics might be tempted to whistle about. But try to ignore that and have a happy and safe Easter. A fine occasion to strive for some perspective about our poor little rich nation. Talk to you Tuesday.